there, fellow maker. Welcome down to the office today. We're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to be working on a mod for an airsoft gun. In fact, this one right here. Boop. This is a supposed to look like a 45 caliber pistol thingy. It's totally an airsoft gun. It's got the whole BB thing in there. That pretty neat. I was inspired to make this because I was playing Destiny 2. No surprise there. And I found this gun. This is called Dead Man Walkin'. And it's a pistol, but it's an auto pistol. And this is Brittany and me playing together. And that's how the gun works. And it's an automatic pistol. And this airsoft gun that I happen to have, why, that's an automatic pistol too. So I figured, why not put a shell on this gun to make it look like a gun from Destiny. So a couple of things before we get started. One, if you do something like this with a functional airsoft gun, you make it look like a prop from a video game, don't bring it to a convention. They will not be happy for that. This is more like for photo shoots or for low budget filmmaking, which would be wicked cool. Or what I plan on doing is keeping this at my house. The other thing is I've already modified this a little bit. Just a tiny bit. There was a sight right here that I removed, and there's a tiny dovetail in there. Same thing back here. This was a little bit more complicated. I had to basically take the whole thing apart to slide this sight out. But it's out of there, and now when I build a 3D printed piece for my Destiny gun, I can screw it into here and slide it into this dovetail, and it'll be nice and secure. So that's the plan. To get started, I grabbed some reference images. Now again, these are all just screenshots from the game, from me and Brittany playing. We both had the gun, so I would take screenshots of her holding the gun at different angles. So I have the top here, I have the side and front, and then scaled next to that is my airsoft gun. So that is ready to go. And then this image is going to get dumped into Fusion 360, which I will do now. Insert to attached canvas. Once I drop my reference image into Fusion, I can go to my canvas here and go to calibrate and pick 2 points on my image that are of a known distance. So let's say starting there, and we'll go, these are inches, so 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's say 9 inches. Boop. 9 inches, and it scales it way, way, way up. And there we go. So this should be scaled 100%. So if I 3D model something over this gun, it should fit on my airsoft gun. Should. I will do some other things to make sure that my scale is right, but in general, that's what I'm doing, and it works pretty great. So let's get started. Okay, and just for reference, here's the airsoft gun, and I put a little bit of gas in it, and this is what it's like when it shoots. Ready? But that's really cool. It's that action that I want for the Destiny gun. So one more time. And there we go. We're out of air. Cool. Super quick here. I did a fast test to do the dovetail for the forward sight. I did this all based on my caliper measurements, and I have no idea if it's even going to fit. So it's a tiny print, and I'm going to print it out on my Ultimaker. This little thing is going to take 4 minutes to print, and we'll see if it fits. If it fits, then awesome. I can move on to the next piece. Otherwise, I'll have to do some tweaking. So here's the tiny piece I just printed. It was super quick, and it almost fits. It's really, really close. I think it's a little tight at the top. So quick tiny update. If we kick on over to Fusion, this is the profile. I can even just kind of manually bump this in a hair if I wanted to. There's probably a more legitimate way to do that. I'm going to tweak this in a little bit, just a hair, like that. Hit stop sketch. And that actually updates the 3D model for me. So I can go in and 3D print that again and do another quick quick test. So here is an example of a piece that I've modeled. Now I'm trying to kind of replicate the rail on the bottom of the gun, and I'm going to offset all of this by 0.1 millimeters, and that's what I'm going to use to kind of like make my sleeve, if you will, for this, for the piece that's going to slide over the rail. So there's a 0.1 millimeter gap around the whole thing, so that hopefully it'll fit together. There we go. So this piece, if I stop the sketch, this, whoops. So this bit here, if I hide my thing there, extrude, hopefully will fit over my rail. So I've just made, again, this is another just tiny example piece that I'm going to print and see if it actually fits on the gun. And if it doesn't, I may have to go in and tweak it a little bit, but that's okay. Cool, I printed a couple of these little guys and did some tweaking on the print settings, and finally I got one that looks like it fits pretty well. So there's a little dovetail there, and this slides right in, and it's nice and snug. The final one I think will get sanded just a tiny bit to make sure that it's nice and smooth. But it's snug in there, but it's not impossible to get out. I think that's what I want. So this dovetail is good to go. And then I'm going to do the same thing to figure out this rear one. So in the back of the gun we have another dovetail. I'm going to do a couple prints to figure that out. And then I'll probably have to figure out how far apart these need to be. So I'll have eventually a piece that I can slide into both of these dovetails. And then I can build the rest of my slide cosmetic piece on top of there. And I know it'll slide in all nice and pretty like. I've made some progress here. My dovetails definitely fit. So I've modeled this rail here. The idea is that this front one will slide into the gun, and the back one will just clip into a little bit of the dovetail, and then there's a screw already there, and that's what I'm going to use to hold that together. And then the slide part of my cosmetic upgrade will attach to this in some way. But I'm going to print this part now just as a test to see if it fits together instead of, printing the whole thing. So, to the printer! So this is a little test piece I printed. Actually printed it on the ANET A8. But this is just to see how well this will fit. And sure enough, that seems to fit fairly nicely. Like that. So, the dimensions are pretty well on. So now I can print a bigger piece using this profile that slides on here, and then we'll screw in using a set screw. There's these little notches there. We'll screw in, holding it in place, and then this bigger piece will be the whole shroud part that covers the end of the gun, the whole cosmetic part there. So cool, this worked out really well. I spent the last few hours tinkering and printing and testing these attachment pieces, and I finally have something that I think is going to work. So here's my test parts. These are the little pieces that go down here. That fits nicely. And then I tinkered with how tall this part needed to be to line up with the top piece. I'll show you that in a second. This is what I ended up getting, this guy right here. These are the pieces that will attach to the slide. These are all my test pieces. This first one was a little short, where the two dovetail pieces should line up, not far enough away. This one was better. It fits all nice like, but this screw hole was off by a lot. I'm not really sure what I did to get it wrong, but the third one was good. So this guy here slides in to the front, slides into the back, and this screw that used to hold the sight in, the rear sight, holds this together. Like like that. So now this part here is nice and secure on the gun. Then this part goes down here. So the idea is that the tops of these two parts are flush, and they're flush in my 3D model because I'm going to build two main parts. There will be the front shroud that will attach to this rail right here, and then there will be the top slide that will attach to this bit right here. So because they're lined up in the 3D model and they're lined up here in meat space, I can 3D model them with fairly reckless abandon and be confident that they will line up. That's the idea anyway. So that's what I've got there. Now, these parts here, I'm going to keep as is structurally, but I can modify the way they look or modify other parts of the structure so that they attach to my cosmetic upgrades. At this point, though, I can start modeling the fancy, shiny Destiny looking parts. Now that I can be sure that my attachment doodads are going to work, I can start modeling the rest of the gun. So I just sketched out a quick sort of representation of the gun, just kind of what I need to know where everything is. Specifically this line right here, that's the bottom of the slide, and I want to line that up with the bottom of the slide on the space gun, so I can move my reference down to the bottom of that line thing and move this back a little bit. The trigger guard is a little different. I'm just gonna roll with it because I think it looks fine, and I'm just kind of lining things up kind of where I think they ought to go, and especially trying to pay attention to things like back here. This is obviously, this part of the functional airsoft gun will be a little bit different. That's okay. I'm okay with that. I have plenty of room up here to fit my airsoft gun inside of this, so I think that'll work out. So I have my new, thank you Creative Cloud for the update. I have my new reference image ready to go, and I think pretty sure I can start modeling my parts. So I put a couple of hours into modeling my gun, and it looks okay, not great. You can see this sort of swoopy kind of part over here I'm not in love with. It's hard to see, but this indent up here, basically this is a series of lofts. Each section here is a different loft from one to the next to the next. And I'm not very good at making lofts do what I want them to do yet, but I learned a lot getting this far. So I think if I do this again, a little more deliberately, that I can accomplish what I need. So I'm actually gonna rewind the tape here and start over. So I've got this little thing down here. Go all the way back to before, when I made all these construction planes. And I think I just have my 3 analog pieces and a couple sketches. So yeah, I'm gonna just start modeling that part again. And that's just my life. So here is my second attempt, and I'm a lot happier with it. Basically, I have these lofts that I did. These are all sketches that I drew and lofted the shapes between them, or bodies between them. But the main thing was adding these lines. These are 3D sketches. They're splines, and you can set them as rails when you make your loft. This was worth doing a second time for sure. I got a much better form, no more weird goofy bits, and anything that I'm not entirely happy with I can fix with sandpaper. So there we go. That's what I've got so far. All I have left to do now is model in more of the details and then carve this out so that I can fit my airsoft gun in there. A couple of things to think about. This part back here, there's some more detail in the actual model in the game, and I'm going to omit that and cut out a channel there so that the hammer of the airsoft gun will actually fit through there, because that's got a function. So there we go. So here we go Time to cut out a giant cavity in my gun. I think, pretty sure this is going to fit. So basically, I drew a profile and cut it out. Whoop, like that. I missed part of it. Let's go fix that. Boop. There we go. And now there's a hole there, and this stands in for my gun shape, and it should fit in there just fine, I think. I hope. I really hope. And yeah, that should work, I think. A little more detail in the front, a little more detail on the top and bottom of this thing. And then I have my rail thing. That right there is going to be for attaching the front onto the rail on the bottom of the gun. And then I made this top rail thing that should fit in there nice and snugly if I did everything right. So this guy right here, that's the part that gets screwed in. And if I did everything correctly, I should be able to put some threaded holes on this, and then model some holes in this top part so that I can screw this down to the slide. We'll see. It's all an experiment. Pretty sure that the rear of the gun is all done. In fact, it's printing right now. For the rail thingy here, this is what everything is going to connect to. That I just printed out. And these holes here are designed to fit M3 screws that I have. So here's that piece all printed out. These are the holes ready to go. I can drill the holes to their final dimension. Like that. And then these M3 screws can be threaded. The ABS plastic is nice and soft, so if I just run the screw through easily and gently, it will cut its own, it'll cut its own threads. Like so. Good news, everyone. I've printed all the parts, and they functionally work the way they need to. The only downside is that the gap between the two pieces here is a little wide, so I have a solution for that. The rail here that this part sits on, or that is attached to, these holes here, I moved them forward a couple of millimeters. So this is the new one I just printed. I'm going to swap it out, and hopefully it solves that problem. This is how this all goes together. This top slidey bit here goes in there. Nice and snug and centered. Like so. And then the original screw. Then this is the original screw from the site. So that gets screwed in there, nice and snug. And then the shroud here goes over, and these three holes should line up with these three holes. And those are screwed together with these little M3 screws that I had lying around. So now I have 3 screws on there that hold this tight to the slide there. And then this guy has a screw on the bottom right there, and when it slides in like so, we can see there's much less of a gap between those. I'm pretty happy with that. And then this gets cinched down like so, and that's on there. And now this can slide as it fires, and it looks pretty good. Everything lines up fairly well, and I'm pretty happy about that. So there you go. That is how this goes together. Now there are some other cosmetic parts. There's a little light bit down there. There's this whole front barrel thing. I'm going to be sanding and painting and doing all of that finishing work, but that'll have to wait for another video. I think this is a pretty good sort of technical breakdown of how I accomplished this so far. One other thing too. In this slide here, you can see the text. I'm going to cover all of the slide on the airsoft gun with some aluminum tape so that it just looks kind of metallic under there. It doesn't look like it's extreme. Well, there you go, guys. That is my design process. I've put a little more work into the gun. Ta-da! So I've started sanding and finishing all these parts. You can see everything slides the way it ought to. And I'm super stoked to get this finished. Hopefully you enjoyed this little jaunt into my templating and prototyping process for my crazy wild hair of an idea. I'm really stoked to get this finished. There will be another video fully finishing this later on. Thanks for sticking around on this one. Sorry that the quality I know is a little janky. This was all recorded live with webcams, so not my usual standard. But I promise next video will be all shiny and new. Anyway, that's all we have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. We'll check you out all in the next build.